when somebody is trying to assess themselves, is there a way they can measure their level of emotional intelligence to know whether they're somewhere?
Very true. You can measure your emotional intelligence through temperaments, your reactions. You can measure your emotional intelligence through your emotions, how you actually respond to different things. What are your gauges of responding to different things? You discover that on process, and they say that you grow more wise as you go older, and there are different things that affects on our lives, and you discover that the perspective on the way you see things determine on your intelligence emotionally. There are issues that can take place in your life, and there is a way you used to react to them, and maybe people do expect that you're going to react to those particular things in a certain way. But as you develop your emotional intelligence, you discover that your level of understanding, but also your level of reaction, is actually dictated by the level of what has taken place, or the level of how somebody has actually affected you. But you approach it in more wiser, but also more peaceful way to be able to, at the end of it, get an amicable solution. Yes.
Wow. Fred, let me ask you, what are some of the traits, the characters that somebody who has high emotional intelligence possess?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Some of the characters are patience, understanding, and just the ability to listen, the listening ability. Listening, and there are aspects of listening. Listening can be in a form of actually question. Like if somebody asks you something, and you didn't get it well, you can actually respond by asking, when you say this, did you mean this? Or what did you mean when you say this? So that you can actually have clarifying aspect of the question, so that you can be able to get to know that you understand better. It's one thing to communicate, and it's another thing to listen well. Now, you can only respond well when you listen well, all right? But also the other aspect is the patience. Life is about patience. People are so loaded inside of them that they can be able to bring out much. But until they are given patience, they are being patient about, they cannot be able to deliver the best that they can be able to. So someone with a high emotional intelligence will actually be patient with somebody and allow the person to build themselves in whatever they do until they are able to maximize on what their potential is in. But of course also just be free, being free. Free to offer help, free to be part of the team, but also free to actually bring the best out of you without any reservation. So that's some of the qualities of emotional intelligence.
Okay, wow. And some of these qualities you're mentioning, for me, I would feel that they would work when somebody is in an environment that is controlled. But in certain cases, Fred, you'll have to agree with me. You find yourself in some situations that are just beyond your control. Maybe something happens that just irritates you immediately, or you meet somebody and they say something that just puts you off immediately. So how do you manage your emotional intelligence in circumstances that you meet such kind of challenges?
Great. One of the tough times actually that I can express is, you can say it's maturity. But let's not actually discuss it on a maturity basis. When you are emotionally intelligent, you are actually observant of the things that are around you. Not in that you're very careful, but you find yourself in a relaxed mood to be able to respond on things on a free manner. People who are tense tend to be actually triggered by very small things. In that when someone steps on your toes, you don't actually focus on them that it could have actually been a mistake for them to step on your toes. You look at them intentional. But when you are emotionally intelligent, you will look at it on a perspective of putting yourself in the situation that even you can actually be able to do the same mistakes. So there is nothing that is abnormal with someone stepping on your toes. And when you begin to look at things in such a manner, you discover that you self-relax on your environment, but also you respond on things by putting yourself in the situations first. Now, when you are in the situation, you know how you would rather react. Because many times when people overreact on issues, you find that they look at people as if they cannot involve themselves in that situation. But people who are emotionally intelligent put themselves within the periphery of what someone has done. Yeah.
What of cases where you have identified that clearly this person intentionally wanted to, you know, irritate or upset? You know, they're just people who would intentionally want to hurt you in one way or another, and you confirm. So how do you deal with that?
People with emotional intelligence, you find that they look at things with an atmosphere of grace. People can, even if someone is intentional about doing something, there is something that is pushing them. And there is a room for change. There is a room for improvement. There is a room for self-discovery. And someone with an emotional intelligence will give a person an opportunity to self-discovery, but also a room for improvement. You know, like when you're offering counseling for such a kind of a person, you will not actually obsess the person by actually pointing to them their mistake, but pointing to them an opportunity for self-discovery, but also improvement, by actually bringing to them a view that, do you think if you could do these things like this, it could be better? You know, because when you see someone doing something, there is something that is pushing them. And, you know, the only way that actually they can be helped is to, first of all, appreciate their potential, appreciate the best inside of them. Anyone who is doing something wrong, there is also something positive about them. And, you know, when you begin with the positive aspect, you can be able to easily confront the negative in them. And so an emotionally intelligent person will not begin with the negative, but will begin with the positive, and then be able to finalize with an improvement, and also pointing out the blind spot in a person. I always prefer this. For you to be able to tell me one wrong thing that I have done, could you tell me the 3 things that I can do good?
Okay.
So that you can actually be able to overcome on that. Okay. People always want to be affirmed rather than actually discouraged. And when you get to affirm somebody with what he has done and with this gifting and strength, you discover that when you tell them the wrong thing that they have done, they actually look at it as a point of improvement rather than a distortion or a discouragement, or seeing it as someone who cannot be able to achieve in life. Yeah.
So you actually approach it in a wise manner, like you go and appreciate the good things, the good traits in that person, then you can find an opportunity to now highlight some of the wrong things they are doing. That's very important. In case you're just joining us, remember we are talking about emotional intelligence. I'm having Fred Abok, a motivational speaker, who is helping us unpack this issue and just educating us on how to control our emotions in our environment and even within ourselves. You can be a part of it. Send your comments on my Facebook fan page, that is at Safin Acheng, and we'll sure love to share that with Fred. Fred, just to get back to you, probably, let's get a bit practical here. Let's look at emotional intelligence versus conflict resolution.
Great.
How can emotional intelligence be used in resolving conflicts, for instance?
Very good. You discover that conflict resolution go hand in hand with people who are highly emotionally intelligent. Because in emotional intelligence, you look at the solution rather than the problem. So when you approach a scenario or a situation, you begin with an end in mind, right? Before you indulge in what caused the problem. Now, when you begin to look at the end in mind, you begin to work backtracking on how can this conflict. So you begin to paint a picture how situation will be after the conflict. Now, emotionally intelligent person will actually begin to dream on a rough scenario, and people want to see the solution. You discover that when people get into conflicts, they always want to achieve the best within their understanding. All right, but you discover that sometimes conflicts become nasty when people want to get on their self-accreditation or self-worth within the conflict structure. So someone with emotional intelligence will begin to look at how can we have a win-win scenario, you know. But a win-win scenario in that whoever is offended will also feel that, yes, there is a contribution that they made, and also there is a self-worth within themselves. So with conflict resolution, we look at the end in mind. And secondly, we begin to synergize in that we partner within the context of finding a solution on the conflict itself. When the synergies, we bring our minds together, you bring the minds together. Everybody has a contribution to make, even if you're the worst person in the scenario. And if you do not give them an opportunity, they will feel that you are actually not objective within what you are discussing. But also make them be part of the team, in that their contribution, where they felt offended is also a self-worth to them, and they can actually be able to improve on the scenario. Yes.
Wow. And does the person who is emotionally intelligent and involved in a conflict, do they always have to compromise for the sake of peace? Do they have to, you know, accept the other side just for the sake of peace, or do they have a say in whatever is going on?
Great. You know, compromise is not a weakness if it's for the sake of peace. You discover that there is a proverb that says, the bull that ran away from a fight is a safer one. Why? Because when bulls fight, injuries will always come, and injuries does not dictate who was offended and who began the offense. So compromise in a scenario of wisdom is actually coming to scene for the posterity, you know, for the end in mind. You look at things and you see what best is, can I be able to bring out in this situation that can actually be able to bring out the safer point in the conflict. So we don't look at conflict as being weak, but we look at conflicts as part of the strength. We look at compromise yes, as part of the strength. So compromise, for people who are actually not emotionally intelligent, compromise to them is weakness. But somebody with emotional intelligence, compromise as a strength. You know, you run not to avoid, but you run to attack in a wise way. All right, in that you are confronted in a scenario, and the only way out is to be physical. You can actually compromise and actually walk away out of it, not because you are the weaker one, but because you are avoiding the being physical. But at the end of it, you can actually call the other person back when actually they have cooled down, and explain to them, you know, the scenario that you are in and what you expected out of them. But also, you know, if you find them on high, apologize. This happens so much in families, and when families are in conflict, you find that when everybody is high, nobody is actually able to understand one another. Someone with the emotional intelligence will actually calm down, so that the partner be able to realize that though you are wrong, but I came down for the sake of the peace and for the sake of amicable solution. Now, after that, you can actually be able to air your points freely without being victimized.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. So compromise is actually a strength, not a weakness for somebody who is emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
Wow. Look at what is happening, like what happened on Thursday,
yes,
you know, blowing of whistles in Parliament.
Yes.
Look at what happened during the Malindi by-election.
For sure.
Look at what happened on Saturday,
yes,
at Kakamega during the rallies,
yes,
at Masinde Muliro.
Yes.
From where you sit, what do you say? What do you say is happening to maybe Wananchi and some leaders?
Yes.
Emotionally speaking, as an expert in that field?
Currently, there is a high emotion. There's a lot of expectation that Wananchi is actually looking for in the society, and it's more or less vis-a-vis they're lacking platform to express their frustrations. But of course, it's one thing to be frustrated, and it's another thing to express your frustrations wisely. All right, because even in a court of law, it's not how loud you are that will convict the judge on how on the grievances that you express, but it's how you can clearly articulate your grievances that will actually allow people to actually understand that you are emotional, you are affected. Now you discover that people who were in parliament, they were very highly intelligent, and what they were bringing out was right, but was the environment conducive for them to be able to express it, all right? Or whoever was actually in the rally, they were justified to be angry. They were justified to be the status they were. But was the environment conducive, or was it